Welcome to the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast. Coming right up, fresh tips and insights from lodging professionals aimed at helping you improve your business. Our podcast is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App, the digital concierge that helps your guests to live like locals. Learn how at frictionlessguest.com. Mr. Steve Short, how are you?
Matthew, how are you? I'm doing all right.
Good. I'm doing well. So this episode is with Mandy Murry. She's the founder of Hospitality Concierge, and she's a hospitality consultant, coach. She helps independent hotels in their operations, marketing, guest experience, and of course, increase revenue. And as you and I were talking, she really knows her stuff. Former property owner, travel writer. It was a good one.
Yep. Marketing background, a whole varied background. So it's not surprising that when we spoke with her that she's understands trends and really knows what's going on in the industry. And I'm sure when she works with independent properties that, she's really given a lot of good insight. And I think, what she talks about today is also insightful as well. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of an undercover boss vibe going on in this. I don't want to tip our hands too much, but there's a part of her service that I've never heard of this before, except for the TV show itself.
Oh,
It's kind of cool.
I'm a little jealous. I'm just a little bummed that after hearing this, it's like, man, this is what I should be doing. I could be doing that on the weekends, my regular paid gig, and then do this on the weekends. Not a bad deal. So
Hey,
anyway,
I know you, Steve. You would do it for free, just for a free place to stay. That's it. To get to stay at these properties.
I
Yeah.
I have a feeling that whatever suggestions or insights I would make would fall way short of what Mandy does. So yeah.
That's hilarious. With that little tease of the Undercover Boss, we hope you all enjoy this Frictionless Innkeeper podcast interview with Mandy Murry, who's the founder of Hospitality Concierge. And Mandy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Matt.
It's great to have you. Steve Short, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Well, we're really excited to have Mandy here. And as we always do with most of our podcasts, we start out at the top learning about our guests. So, Mandy, if you don't mind, tell us about Hospitality Concierge, your background, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So I started Hospitality Concierge. I think I kicked it off just over 2 years ago. My background is in travel and tourism marketing, and I was a co-owner of an independent boutique hotel outside of Asheville, North Carolina. When we sold the hotel, I knew that my career was not done. And so that brought me into coaching with independent hotels, inns and bed and breakfasts to, further enhance their operations, their marketing, the guest experience, and driving revenue to their properties.
That's what it's all about is the revenue ultimately, isn't it?
I think everybody works to make money, but what I love about hospitality is that people in hospitality and hotels or bed and breakfast, they're doing it because they have a passion for it. Because, we know it's a lot of hard work. At the hotel that I was at, during the pandemic, we're in the kitchen, I'm working as a chef and then running the front desk. And then and when I say that, we had a full service restaurant. So, and we had a full service bar. So one night I'm a bartender. One night I might be cooking your dinner. One morning I'm making your breakfast. One day I might be in housekeeping. And I think that's what I love about the indie space is that whether owner operator or somebody just in the indie space, it truly is a passion for hospitality.
No doubt. Yeah. How long did you have the boutique independent place in Asheville?
So I was there about 10 years and my husband, I guess I married into it, but that's how it happened. And then, took full ownership of it. He was there about 30 years. So I think he got there in 95 or 96. And we sold the summer of 2022.
Wow. And before that, you say travel industry or
I was in the travel industry. So I had my own marketing company that focused on hospitality, travel, and real estate. And prior to that, I was a marketing director for a private island development. And then prior to that, I was a travel advisor, travel agent. So I started my career at 16 at a travel agency. And I've always loved to travel, so I call flying cloud surfing. And so whenever that's my little hashtag whenever I'm flying because I'm in the air a lot visiting clients. And it started as a travel agent, ended up at the private islands in the Bahamas for a little stint and left there and started my own marketing company and was in the travel and food writing space as well. So my career is very well rounded. And I think, as you said earlier, that, I've even been in the Avett Brothers, Ain't No Man, 5.05 seconds of fame. So, I've had a very well rounded career in travel and hospitality, and the hotel was something very new. And I first kind of resisted. I was talking to somebody the other day. I was teaching an NYU class, co-teaching a class, and I resisted it at first. Like, there's no way I'm going to want to do this. When I really got into it, we had goals, but I had a lot of goals with the hotel. And when I told my husband about them, he kind of laughed and said, "We're never going to do that." But I will tell you that we exceeded our goal in less than 12 months and continue to exceed our goals. And one of the final goals was to sell the property so he could semi-retire in Montana. And I found myself moving on to what I'm doing now at Hospitality Concierge.
moving to Montana soon, as Frank Zappa would say. We always try to slip the music thing in if we can.
I know. We
The
got Avett Brothers and Zappa. This is
I
this is
know.
a I got 2 references in the first 5 minutes. This is really good.
You never know where it's going to go. My secret when I was food writing is I'd always use like a little line from a song and like weave it in. Somebody finally caught on at the magazine and they're like, we love looking for the clue.
Right, and that gives a reason for if your readers were reading regularly, right, they're looking as well. They're like, "I gotta read the article because I wanna look for the"
Yeah.
you know? Well, it doesn't surprise me that that's why I was curious about your background prior to the Asheville property. It doesn't surprise me that you did marketing because I look at your marketing at having been to a few conferences with you, and it's really professionally done. I'm like, okay, she has to come from some sort of marketing background. And having seen your very professional presentation at, I think it was at the Michigan Bed and Breakfast Association, it might have been 2 years ago that I first saw you. But yeah, I'm like, okay, she's got the marketing part down and she understands the industry and the trends and all that stuff too. So that doesn't surprise me that you weren't just a property owner, manager, whatever. So yeah,
Thank you, Steve.
cool. So yeah, so I think you want to really focus today on talking about, I guess, a specific trend that you're seeing. So do you want to go into that and talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there and the specifics of it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always this like the state of the trends and what's happening in 2025 and what happened in 2024. And I think what we saw in 2024 was this idea that quiet luxury was taking shape. And I know that's not what we talked about, but hear me out. We're going to get to the 2025 trend. So in 2024, quiet luxury was this idea that people were moving away from like the Ritz Carlton. They're moving away from these 5-star resorts, not 5-star experiences. So quiet luxury was this luxury experience that they were getting this 5-star experience and really feeling the hospitality that they were visiting places that made them feel something. And as we come into 2025 and we're in it, the number one trend in 2025 is travelers and guests seeking out family-owned properties. And I think that's a continuance of 2024 from this quiet luxury phase into family owned, because what people are looking for is they want to feel like family. I know this at our hotel. Like, guests would arrive and they would feel like this was their home for that duration of their stay. They felt confident and comfortable walking anywhere, talking to anybody. They wanted to interact and they received the hospitality that they were seeking. And so I think it's just this show that, look, we no longer want to show up to a resort and spend, I tell a funny story. I spent a night at a Ritz-Carlton, which I will not tell you where. I'll just say it was at a Ritz-Carlton. And it was quite possibly the worst hotel experience I've had in over 2 years, and one of the most expensive hotel experiences. And it's because of, I think, this box thinking of this is how everything is run, this is how it feels. And we have all these chains now talking about, hey, we want to talk about the guest experience. And I think what they're trying to do is they realize that this independent space is so nimble, so flexible, so welcoming that it comes off so genuine. And that is why this family owned trend is really the 2025 trend. And I think we're going to see it and beyond.
Well, it comes off as genuine because it is, right? I mean,
Right,
and
right.
and it might have been this past year where you were talking about this trend this past year at Michigan, because you were basically, if I remember correctly, you were saying something like, you all have what the big brands want. They want to simulate, emulate, whatever you want to call it. And that is, how do they get this big army of people who work for them to provide that same level of caring and service and being genuine that the real independents already give, right? And it's not easy. And that's one of the competitive advantages of the independent industry, right? Of the independent properties, is to use that to finally, to be honest with you, to see this happening. If this is the trend, it's about time, because this is really what the bed and breakfast basic concept was all along. And you got Airbnb, and then you have, it really kind of hurts when I see these bigger hospitality companies buying these smaller properties and, I don't know, franchising them or whatever. I mean, I understand that, and there's probably a place for that, but I really think that the family owned, and maybe you're saying it's more like it feels like family or something, but I'm concerned that the family owned part, if it goes away, we're going to lose that, you know?
Right. And flip side of that, it's getting a lot harder in some aspects and areas for family owned properties to operate and compete, right?
Mhm.
So we have guests that want these experiences, they want family owned. And how do they find them? Because family owned also has a harder time being able to market and look and have that impact like a brand can have. And these brands are taking, let's say that we have, we'll use Marriott, and this isn't any particular case, but we have a Marriott big box somewhere in a city, and then they have their little smaller brand supporting them, right? They strategically buy property so they can feed all of their brands within their brand in Marriott. So now what they're trying to do, right, is come in and say, oh, well, we're going to look at it as like a spoke of a wheel, and we should get this family owned property into our portfolio because we're going to be able to feed that. And then we're going to turn that family owned property into, as well, it's part of the brand. Maybe that becomes a luxury property. And so it's really interesting to see this. And it is sad because once a brand buys this family owned inn, let's say we have, like our inn was 23 rooms and we didn't sell out to a brand. Let's say that they buy this 23-room inn, it now has more of a hotel feel because the number one thing that they do is they go in and they're like, oh, well, no, we cannot do that. And we have to paint this color. and we have to change this color of the bedding, even though like it had a story behind it. And they go and they're like, everything goes stark white.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden you lose this character and now the bedding is white and this has changed and this has changed and your guests can feel that. So I agree with you. It's sad that some of this is happening because the family owned experiences are those that really are so embedded into local communities and they know exactly where to send their guests, how to make their guests feel. I don't know, we could talk about it forever, but I don't want family owned to go away, but I also understand the challenges of family owned and being able to either take your property to the next level or be able to compete, especially when you have brands, you have OTAs, you have rewards programs, because there's a million different hotel rewards programs out there. And so, how are you marketing and getting yourself out there? And but I love this trend, and I hope that this trend continues because I love that people are saying, "We want to stay differently. We want personalized experiences, and we know that the best place to get that is going to a family-owned property."
Yeah, and you said something there that really kind of hits at certainly our belief and probably our mission really with our frictionless guest app. And that is we kind of see it as a tripod where you've got the guest, you've got the property, and you've got the local thing going on. And if we're going to keep these interesting places, of course, towns, the franchising of America, whatever, but the unique places in the world, as well as the unique properties where I want to go to stay and visit those places, right? You've got the local businesses are part of that, right? So they all have to support each other. I'm not necessarily, my wife and I are big, B&B people for 35 plus years, and we're not necessarily going to a bed and breakfast just to stay there. We're picking the town first and then finding a B and b because we wanna do local things, right, that are
Right,
owned by local people, and they're real, they're not manufactured experiences, right? So,
right.
that's one of the big concerns, and that's kinda why we push the partnership thing in using the app, like, go out and as property owners, go out, get to know the local businesses, know what's good, know what your guests want, and then point them in that direction. That's the whole point of the app is to make those recommendations. And you can even make the experience incredible by having your guests treated differently by that local place. And they're going to say, wow, I was treated like royalty here because where I stayed suggested that I go there and they knew I was coming or, they did something special because we were recommended to go there by where we stayed. So anyway, sorry, I had to,
Well,
I'm not trying to
no,
plug the app.
absolutely.
I'm trying to plug the concept and the need for this stuff, right?
You and I could geek out about this together. We did in Michigan. I remember, like, this just makes sense. I think that Will Guidara came out with his book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And while it's talking about his experience in the restaurant industry, it plays over into exactly what the Frictionless app does and what it can do for properties. It is embedding into the community. It is giving people that experience. It is about making somebody feel something. And it's we won't remember what you said, but we'll always remember how you made me feel. Like you always want to leave something a little bit better than when the guest arrived. Like, how did that experience work? How did you make them feel? And so it all comes together. So I love this conversation.
Yeah, very cool. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of the guest experience part of this equation? Or maybe because most of our listeners are independent lodging people, right? Are there any suggestions other than as long as you're family owned, be yourself? I mean, you still want it to
Yeah.
be a good experience. I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of suggestions, right? Because yes, you're on trend if you're family owned, you're on trend. You also have to deliver on what guests are expecting from accommodations, right? So there are people, you and your wife, right? You find a location, you seek out a bed and breakfast. There are people that are seeking out a bed and breakfast and not a location. And there are people seeking out, I know that I just want this type of experience. And so there's all kinds of different travelers and different guests. And so what do guests want? And I think it's truly important to say, like, wherever your property is, whatever size it is as an independent, you have to still keep up on the look and the feel within the walls of your property and outside of the property. So if you have outdated bathrooms and outdated furniture, like this is stuff that you have to continue to invest in. You have to think like a hotel. And so when you have the guest experience, you have to think like a hotel in terms of what you have, right? What bath amenities, what is the lighting in the bathroom? What are the guests expecting? And your plan, like where do you want to go and see your future as an independent property? That's one part of, I guess, the guest experience where I think people are just like, well, no, I have the best place. I updated my bathrooms 10 years ago. But all of those things change really rapidly. And so you have to continue to invest in yourself and invest in that guest experience. And part of that experience, as you said, is having the local connections and really, really focusing on that and focusing on what sets you apart as an independent. I think a lot of times when I'm consulting, they're like, well, this person down the street does this. And we have to reel it in and we have to talk about like, but is that who you are? So the guest experience stems from your story as a property and being able to have that story full circle in everything that you do in your marketing, in the appearance, in the gift shop, in your breakfast. And so I think when we're talking about the guest experience is it's the full circle of what your story is and what that means.
So it's interesting. What you're saying is that you need to have similarities to the brands in that everything is top notch, basically, and appropriate. So we're not looking to throw back to the doily days of the bed and breakfast or whatever, right? The
Right.
doily, whatever they say, the flowers and doilies and all that stuff. We're not necessarily looking for that, but you don't want sterility, you want uniqueness as well. And so it's almost like I see it as kind of there's certain commoditization type things that have to be done, clean towels and all of these other things. They're really important. You can't slack on that. But at the same time, there's nothing that says that the towels have to all match or something, right? Maybe they do. I don't know. Where they
Right. Like,
be in line with your brand, because even though you're just one, maybe just one location, there's still a brand message that has to happen, right?
right. Absolutely. You have to have a brand message. Sure, you can have different color towels. That's up to you, right? What is your story? I mean, there's a lot of people that have themed rooms and it works for them. Part of it is stems on their location or the story they're telling about a hotel or their property, right? So there's no right or wrong, but the number one thing is it has to be unique. And then it has to embed into the community because your property is an experience in itself. And then it's also, when you think about it, it's almost a catalyst for tourism within your community.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. So tell us about this covert kind of thing that you've been doing recently. you're you're not a part of like one of those, what's the deep state or the three acronym agencies or something, or the three letter agencies or whatever. Tell us what you're really.
No, that's so funny. So yeah, we did talk about a little bit. I love how you set that up, a covert operation. This has been a fun last, I don't know, the last 12 months. So I coach with clients one on one and we have weekly calls and, we talk everything: marketing, revenue, strategy, operations, growth, just there's so many things that we talk about. And I've had several hospitality companies reach out and say, how do we do boutique? how do we act like independent? Or if they aren't independent, how do we help create this feeling? What's missing at our hotels? And so it sort of just led into this new piece of what I do of showing up as an undercover boss. And, I don't know if anybody has seen the television series in the past, but, you'd have CEOs of the company coming in and they're working, housekeeping, and they're showing up as like, I was a new hire, totally changed with makeup and hair and dress. And at the end of the episode, it would be, hey, by the way, I'm so and so CEO of whatever. And everyone was in shock. But what this did was it allowed the CEO to look at their company in a very different way. And I know when I first started at the hotel, I use that exact model of I'm going to work in every single department. I'm going to get to know the people. I'm going to get to know their process. And then we're going to implement changes in conversation and build the team from the ground up together and get insight. And so this new thing is so fun. It takes me back to travel writing days where, I go experience a hotel and everything about it. And back then I would just get to write about it, but now I get to show up and I get to really take, how was it making my reservation? How was it when pre-arrival? What was my experience like when I checked in? What was my room like? What was the property like? What questions did I ask that did not get answered? The whole thing from booking a reservation to what happens when I check out and what did I purchase from there? What did I get as a thank you? And so it's this full circle guest experience overview, but it dives into much more than the guest experience because the guest experience stems from the team and operations and, what the property is like. And so it's been so much fun staying at a hotel and nobody knowing that I'm coming or who I am and, just interacting as I'm just Sarah Smith that walked through the door and I'm checking in and this is it. So if they have a spa, I'm using the spa. Like it's just like I would do a travel writing or food writing where you have to literally experience everything and then give the feedback of, okay, well, we're not going to shoot it to you like any other way than straight. So this was amazing. This needs improvement and why. Here's what's missing. And guess what? In some cases, I never got a confirmation number, email, and your system should have triggered that I gave you the wrong email address. So we do little things to test, are your booking engines working? What was breakfast like? And, I know like at our hotel, one of our chefs once, instead of baking soda, put salt. And the biscuits were just horrible, right? So, of course, no guest told us that they were horrible. I happened to taste one. And so this are like the hard truths. Like sometimes like, I'm sorry, I sat down and I had a really dry whatever. And these are things that take away from the experience of the guest. And so it is so much fun. And I think I've always, since the travel writing days, gone in and like I always go in. I walk into a hotel and I think I'm looking, I'm like, oh, look at that scratch on the wall. And oh, they must not have a maintenance guy. Or oh, wow, can you believe that that person was so rude? Like all of the things you just notice. And now it's been fun really getting to dive into properties at a different level from just, conversation. And I'm really being able to dive in and help. And, I have independents that are ready. They're like, we have one Michelin key, we're ready for a second. So what do we have to do? And part of this is having you be here to help have the conversation and move us in another direction.
That's a pretty sweet gig. That's all I can say. I mean, all you have to do is you go and you stay at the property and yeah, let me go to the spa and all of that. I mean, that's not a bad deal. Um,
It's not a bad deal, but it is work, like people look at it. It's just like if, they see me flying, they're like, do you ever work? Like, will you just stay home? Why are you just always flying around? And I'm like, what you don't see is that I'm flying, doing all this work, going, having meetings, and then continuing to do the work because you're still meeting and presenting and coming up with solutions. So yes, it's a lot of fun and it is I absolutely love what I do because I love helping independent hotels become better and have more presence and feed the trends of what luxury is, you know?
So do you really check in as like Amanda Smith or something like that? Or are you
Well,
so
I do have to have a credit card. I do have to have a credit card in my name. When I did food writing, I would pay all in cash and book it under a different reservation name. No, I typically show up in my name. I have a couple aliases that I do use, but I'm not going to say what those are because just in case somebody's
you don't wanna blow your cover?
yeah, I don't want to blow my cover. There's a lot of times people be like, "Do I know you?" Like, I don't know.
Luckily, even though we're on Zoom and we can see you on video, this is just an audio podcast, so no one's gonna know, but they will see your picture on the podcast.
Right, right. That's okay.
We could always put, like, a dark line over your eyes if you want, but it's probably
That is kind of funny. I will see, what people think about that.
I also wanted to know, so do you really like, you don't do things to, like, trip them up or whatever. You said, like, you mess maybe with like, maybe at the system level by putting in a bogus email address, but it's not like you're walking around trying to sabotage the property, right?
No, no. So I would never walk around and sabotage the property. So I would never do anything to an employee or staff member or owner. Like I test the systems.
Right.
So test the systems and then give the feedback of this did not work or this is what happened at check-in. What are your training protocols? So it's never an attack or anything on a person because anybody working in the hospitality business deserves all the respect and thank you in the world.
You're not a hospitality hacker, basically.
No, no.
Would you go to, like, I can see where, you sit down for breakfast and you ask for some special thing just to see how they might handle that, though.
Right, absolutely. So you could sit down and say, "Oh, is there any chance that you have gluten-free toast?" And so some people will get tripped up because some places just don't, but, that's where you look at if you don't have it, "Hey, here's an idea of something that you could add in your reservation or pre-arrival information. Can you ask the question, do you have any dietary restrictions or needs?" Or can you ask that when they're checking out so you're aware of things ahead of time? And I think independents are far better at asking these questions and being prepared because they want to deliver an
Mhm.
amazing guest experience where, chains they're not that way. They're not like, we're hand preparing your breakfast. I need to make sure that I have toast on hand for you if you are gluten free. And so, but yes, absolutely. There are questions to ask, but not personal attacks on, you know,
Okay.
person.
Yeah, the devils in the details. Well, I noticed that at the beginning of the podcast, I was doing a little audit or undercover thing with Matt. He didn't even give me a chance to say hi to you. He said hi to you. He said hi to me. I wasn't able to slip in like, "Hey, Manny, thanks for being on the podcast." So that's already, I've got to write up.
Yep, you gotta write me up. Yep.
Not getting the
Uh,
Michelin podcast key anytime
I'm
soon.
not getting the Michelin star on this one.
But But anyway, Matt, now that you've made me do all the work like usual, do you wanna jump in here and try to get us back to finishing this thing up or what?
You got it, of course. Mandy, this has been really cool and really appreciate your time and love the undercover boss angle. I'm sure that'll probably be a big part of our write up and angle on this. That's really cool. And, before we sign off today, is there anything else to add or anything we may have missed? We're all ears.
I think the one thing that I want to add for the independent hotels is that everyone has been chasing this term luxury. And I see it all the time. And, well, I'm a luxury property. I'm a luxury property like they're a luxury property. And what I want people to realize is that luxury now is no longer about this five-star resort. Luxury is all in the experience. So luxury is tailored around experience in certain cases, wellness in certain cases, and the story. And so this is where luxury is heading. And I don't want to just beat in luxury for just because you have this luxury experience, that means you're commanding $1,500, $3,000, $5,500 a night. Like, don't think of luxury in terms of rates. Think of luxury in terms of experience, and just like always know that like there are people rooting for this family owned experience and these community local experiences that are not Instagram moments, that are truly immersive experiences that really change people. And I think more than ever, we all need that in our lives.
Good point. So summarize, luxury is like in the experience itself, right? That's
Mhm.
where the luxury lies.
Absolutely.
So before Matt leads us out, information on, and we'll put this in the show notes, but information on how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's Mandy Murry without an A.com. So MandyMurry.com. Company is Hospitality Concierge. That will also send you to the same website. And if you want to email me directly, email me at concierge@mandymurry.com.
Excellent. Good deal. Well, thank you very much, Matt. You want to do your closing blurb?
I will. I'll take us out. So this concludes this Frictionless Innkeeper podcast interview with Mandy Murry, who's the founder of Hospitality Concierge. And she is a hospitality consultant and coach who helps independent hotels in operations, marketing, guest experience, and increasing revenue. And our podcast is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App, the digital concierge that helps your guests to live like locals. Learn how at frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com. And Mandy and Steve, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you both so much.
Thanks, Mandy. We really appreciate it.